Good evening, and thank you for joining me at Music Today. This is Keitaro Harada. The concept of the show is to bring in an artist each episode and have a conversation with the artist about a performance we will all watch and listen together. The live component is very important because I encourage all of you to comment and ask questions live to the artist. The concept and the idea of doing the show came about when COVID-19 hit, and I wanted a platform to keep the music going for our fans. Even though we may not be able to experience live performances together right now, I wanted a place where music lovers can join easily and converse with an artist and to see more of the personal side of us. Music Today is a bilingual show. The live streams during your evening will be in English, and the shows that broadcast during the morning time will be in Japanese for the fans in Japan. If you want to improve on your Japanese skills, you're more than welcome to watch the Japanese interviews too. You can use the subtitle button somewhere around here after the live stream ends so that you can listen in Japanese and watch it in English. Today is show number 52. I'm very excited that I've been doing this for every day since May, almost two shows daily, but it just keeps going. And I'm glad for all the wonderful guests that have been joining us since the beginning. Without further ado, I'd like to bring in our guest tonight. Since we on this side cannot really hear you applaud, please do me a huge favor and use the comment screen to type clap, 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 or you can use the clapping emoji to tell us that you're clapping and you're excited for the show. And remember, please comment and say hello. Please welcome our special guest, Augusta Reed Thomas. Hi.
Hello, good evening, and
Oh,
or good morning.
Good evening.
Here, and thank you so much.
Thank you for being on the show.
Thanks, Kay, for having me on the show. It's so impressive what you're doing, 2 shows a day. Bravo.
Yes. Thank you so much. Augusta, where are you quarantined right now?
I'm in Chicago, Illinois.
I hope you are safe and all your loved ones are safe from the craziness that is happening right now.
Thank you. Yes, and you too, and all your audience and viewers.
Thank you so much. We have some viewers already. Dave Lake left the Herbie Hancock concert. Yes, that's right. Herbie Hancock was doing a live concert. Thank you for joining us. And we have Marcia, the librarian from the Savannah Philharmonic, saying clap, clap, clap. Thank you for joining. Fantastic. For our viewers, I just want to share just a little bit of how Augusta and I know each other, which we met in 2010 at Tanglewood Music Festival when I was a fellow there. And then and you've been just such a wonderful mentor and such a nice, so friendly and warm right from the get-go. And I've always treasured the friendship that I have with you. And every time I visit Chicago, I always call you up. And if you're in town, I come visit you and have some martini at your wonderful place. But it's been wonderful. So, and the music, I've been introduced to many of your music and have been able to perform with my youth orchestra and throughout. So I'm very excited that we get to share a lot of your music today on the show.
Well, thank you. And I deeply value you as a friend and as a collaborator and as a musician and as a person. So it's an enormous honor to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's talk about Fanfare of Hope and Solidarity. Tell us about this music.
So I think it was maybe, 2 months ago or so, or something like this. I received a call from Thierry Fisher, the music director of the Utah Symphony, asking me if I could write a piece for orchestra really quickly. And I was on the phone. I said, Thierry, how quickly? And he goes, I want score and parts in 2 weeks. I was like, looking at the phone, like, are you crazy? This is, of course, we're all in lockdown, and his orchestra is wonderful. The Utah Symphony, I've worked with them. They did a world premiere and a recording and another piece earlier and so forth. They wanted to try to be the first orchestra to do an entire orchestral piece that's a world premiere. Not just 2 players or 6 players or 8 or 12, but you have the whole symphony orchestra. So he wanted to get it done really quickly. So I was very honored to be able to do that, but I would not be able to do it without my amazing engraver, who I've worked with now for, I think, 30 years, maybe more. And his name is Leonard, and he lives in Tokyo with his wife, Eriko. So I don't know if Len and Eriko are listening, but if you are,
please comment and say hi.
Thank you, Len. So I called Len and said, do you want to go on a 2-week marathon with me? And he's like, okay, let's do it. So we did it. And so Fanfare of Hope and Solidarity, from the phone call until the hand-in, was 2 weeks. And then they started rehearsing it 3 days later, and it was up online about 10 days later. It was super fast. And so it's a work for orchestra. It lasts about 4 minutes. And I was thinking about what's important right now. And I think what is important is hope and solidarity. And I wanted to write a piece that was celebratory in a certain way and like positive and optimistic, but also has an emotional middle section and sort of a sense of reach. And then also to try to sculpt something that works in 4 minutes, like a whole piece that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And, so it's tricky to do, but I enjoyed it. And I think some of the challenges were just doing it quickly, but also every player's alone at home, just playing their iPhone. So they can't hear each other. And so you have to write a piece of music where people can feel confident, like how they're playing, that they'll sound good as they're playing, that they can understand the concept of the piece only with their line. And then also I asked about percussion. And they said, well, one of us has like some triangles and another one of us has some crotals. And I think I have a vibraphone in my basement or whatever. So whatever the 3 percussionists had at home, which was very limited, is what I used.
Yeah, you got to adjust to the, whatever they have. And they don't, many don't have their timpani in their living room just lying around. So you have to be creative for sure.
Exactly. And in a way, Stravinsky said that when you have limitations such as these, you have, you have to really show your craft and your skill. And here's what you've got. Now make us something quickly that's going to work.
Yeah.
And so I enjoyed the challenge, actually.
Fantastic. I want to share our viewers the wonderful sketches that you often do with your composition, which for this piece is that. Can you just walk us through what?
Sure. Yes, indeed. So this is basically a map of the form. So for instance, a conductor or a player might say, okay, what am I building? So you see right at the bottom, it's 4 minutes, a little bit, maybe 4 and a little bit. And it's in sort of 3 arcs. You see a blue one, a purple one, and then a sort of a purpley pink one. And then it flares out into yellow resonances. That's what the yellow is. Bells are ringing at the end like sunlight ripples. So you can see that it's basically in those 3 phrases. And
I love that there's a heart mark there.
Yeah, that was just for hope and solidarity. We need a little love.
It's so cute.
And then, the middle section has 3 lyrical phrases. The beginning starts with brass, and the yellow things are the bells. Of course, there was such limited percussion, but it's the triangles and the crotals and the chimes and the vibraphone. But I basically wanted to have this optimistic sense of resonance running through the whole piece. And if you just track the yellow, you can see that it's deeply integrated into the piece, so that when we get to the end, in which all we have is resonance of bells hanging in the air, where it's just yellow on right there, it's so you sort of feel that ending was built in from the very first bar.
I see. It's so cool. How do you, when you start any composition, is this the first step that you do? Do you map it with this visual?
Usually when I am fortunate and to be able to write music and have a commission and somebody says, I want an 8-minute piece, I just draw 8 minutes on a piece of paper, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and I just look at it. I'm like, what could I do in 8 minutes? Because you have to build the right material for the duration. You can't have a piece that's way too long with no material or too short with too much material. And usually then I'll draw tons of maps. I could do 3-part form, 2-part form, big crescendo, whatever. And I never follow any of them. I throw them all out.
Okay.
And I start improvising at the piano. And as the music starts to develop, the form reacts or is based on the music. It's not that the music is being put into a form, it's that the form is the pure reaction to the sound. So this map was drawn at the end. Okay, here's what it ended up being. But along the way, I did draw a lot of maps because I like the proportions. I care a lot about proportion and sort of the inner life of a piece or the flow of a piece. And if you have a piece that just works from beginning to end, you have to take care of every 15 seconds. Every 10 seconds has to have a reason to be there. And so in a way, you can see from these maps that I'm kind of a sculptor of sound. It's not just sort of music by the yard. It's actually more poetic. It's every word matters, every dash matters, every comma matters in the music.
Not only are you a sculptor, you are an owner of awesome Sharpies. Like, how many colors do you have? This is incredible.
Well, these are actually, I'm actually at a desk right now where I have piles. I don't know if you can see.
Oh, wow. That is a lot of color. Whoa, that's
whoops.
Very cool.
But they're not Sharpies. They're just, and some of them are Sharpies. But anyway, it's kind of fun. I mean, mostly I spend all the time writing the scores.
Right.
But I think it's useful for a conductor when you get a 200-page score. It's like, okay, what am I building? And for instance, in my piece Helios Choros for orchestra, which is an orchestra piece that lasts 42 minutes, I think. It can be very helpful to get a picture of, okay, what are we building here?
Yes, most definitely. So let's take a listen to the world premiere performance. The visual element is so awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, I can't take any credit for that. There was a wonderful video artist. I just told her I wanted sunlight and the globe and the earth and positive resonant colors and not dark. And I sent her a couple of images of certain things of sunlight and that I found, like photographs. But she just ran with that and came up with all this on her own.
And then what I enjoy is that for each of these close-up shots, it's masked with this, sort of like the sunlight hitting the glass kind of effect. So it's not just a very bland photo, but it's got a little bit of touch to it. So it's beautiful.
Yeah, I think the idea was to sort of, if it is a fanfare of hope and solidarity, it has to be universal and global and, reaching outward. And so I think that these images hopefully pull us or our mind in that direction, toward the sun or toward the stars or toward the galaxy. It can't just be local.
Did you add a click? Is that what everyone's listening to?
They are playing to a click. Yep, exactly. And it's remarkable. It's remarkable how quickly and how well they did this. Amazing.
And I really appreciate that the sound was mastered very well, that they collected the sound and then put it into, I'm assuming, through a system so that the sound quality is really great, and then added the video content to it.
Exactly. The sound engineer finished, then he sent it to me, and I asked for a few tweaks, and then it was sent to the videographer. And I think he had to equalize all the iPhone recordings and figure it out and sort of line a few things up that were just ever so slightly off. But I thought he did an excellent job. And then the videographer got it so she could work directly to the exact sound. I think they did a wonderful job.
It's beautifully done, and oftentimes every orchestra is so new to doing these virtual orchestra that often you just get like a plain background, but these layers makes it really more fun. Wow.
It's hard to hear, but there's a resonance ringing now for about 15 or 20 seconds.
Bravo. Thank you for sharing that. It was beautiful.
Thank you.
And having seen the visual element, the sketch prior to it, I could, it's really nice to keep that in mind as I hear the music, because it just let that yellow, I could visually see the yellow color, starting from somewhere and then going out to exploding at the end.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. I just wanted to share a few more hellos. We have Phyllis from Savannah. We have Erica Horton, who is watching. Marcia, librarian from Savannah Philharmonic.
Hey, Marcia.
And then Daniela Gualdi, who is a violinist at Savannah Philharmonic. And
yes, I remember her, actually. Hello. Nice to see you.
And then Samir Nikochevich, pianist and also a patron of the arts at Savannah. So
wonderful.
Fantastic. Thanks for joining, guys. So Gusty, let's talk a little bit about you. How were you introduced to music, and then what was the turning point of your career in deciding that composition was the way to go with your life?
Yeah, thank you. I was always really attracted to music. I'm the 10th of 10 children.
Okay.
And my mom taught kindergarten for 30 years, and she supported our family. So she didn't have a lot of free time, but we had an old rickety piano in the house, and she used to play it. She's an amateur. And I remember lying under the piano as a little girl and being so attracted. So I started touching the piano like age 3 and 4. I think here I might be 5 or so. I think this was the Christmas holiday in the United States, and I was supposed to play some piece for my family. I think that's what the occasion was. But so I was practicing a lot as a young girl. And then I went on, of course, to sing in choirs, but I also took up the trumpet. And I played trumpet all the way through college. And in fact, I was a trumpet performance major, not a composer major.
I did not know that.
Yeah, there I am with my mom. There she is.
Oh, it's wonderful.
And I think I might have been 12 there, maybe. I don't know.
Did you choose the trumpet, or did your band director say you need to play the trumpet?
So I was super into music. So the lower school teacher told the middle school teacher, she's so into music. Because I really was. So then when we got to choose our instruments, they lined us up by the alphabet of our last name. Okay. And my last name is Thomas. So by the time I got in, I wanted to play flute or clarinet or something. They only had trumpet, euphonium, or snare drum. That was my choice. Yeah. And so I said, all right, I'll play trumpet. And I remember I came home that night from school with a trumpet. My mother's like, what is that? I said, it's a trumpet. She goes, why are you going to play trumpet? I said, well, that's all they had left, And my twin brother played the euphonium because he was next in line. So it was just trumpet and euphonium. But I really loved it. And I think having played my whole life and sung in choir and played piano alone and then played piano in ensembles and then also trumpet in orchestra and band and so on and so forth, I'm so empathetic to the musicians.
Mm-hmm.
So for most of my life, I was on that side of the stage. That's where I was. I was like, so I really care, like, how does it feel to play this? And what does it look like on the page? And what kind of words am I using to describe the sound, or notations am I using?
Mm-hmm.
I want to really have an empathy for them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's just so clear, I think, when one knows my music, that I didn't just sort of suddenly become a composer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's totally true. And, we were scheduled to do your composition at Savannah Philharmonic next season. And then knowing, you've been so gracious in sharing me many of your compositions and recordings and your scores to me personally. And so you're writing especially for the trumpet. I could tell now that you've told me that you play trumpet. Now it all makes sense why the trumpet is so featured in some of your performances of your compositions. It's really making sense now. I had no idea that you had. So where does the composition come in?
Well, I started composing when I was young, just like at the piano and making up little tiny songs that would be like 2 notes, like plunk, plunk, that would be a song. Or I would like make a chord or something. And I consider that a song at age 4. But then I kept kind of going with it because my piano teacher said, well, why don't you make something up for next week?
Okay.
And I was like, okay. And then the next week she said, good, make something else up. And so I sort of got used to putting my hand on paper, at the piano. And then I was fortunate enough to go to a high school where I was able to have music theory and piano and trumpet and chorus. And then I also took composition there. So by the time I went to undergraduate college, I had done quite a lot of composition things.
I see.
So it was just very organic. It was just, I was practicing and I was making stuff up and I was listening to jazz and I was improvising, and all of that is exactly what I do now.
I see. Did you find yourself composing more for your voice because you sang, or for trumpet because you played trumpet or piano? Did you find that as like the composition medium first, and then as you escalated to different other instruments and ensembles?
Yeah, I mean, I think composition. I know you are inferring this, so let me just say. Anyway, it has to be. You have to write the music that's for the right instrument.
I see.
Like if you're writing for solo bassoon, it's completely different material, obviously, than if you're writing for girls chorus.
Right.
So, I mean, this is obvious, but so in a way, I just really try to be a good tailor. If somebody asks me what do they want, if I feel I have good imagination for that. But then are there ensembles that I lean toward, which is, I think, sort of the nature of your question. And I love to write for orchestra, and I love to write for chorus, and I love to write for chorus and orchestra together. I like to write for voice, and I like to write for piano. So in a certain way, all the stuff I grew up doing, but I also I love writing for strings. Absolutely. And I love writing for everything. I mean, I just love music. I just love it. So I just, if I have the chance to write something, I'm just honored and thrilled, basically.
I want to show our viewers a photo of you and Leonard Bernstein. What was this encounter about?
So what happened was I had written a lot of music when I was very young. And I think here I'm like 19, maybe 20. And I was referred to Tanglewood Music Center to Oliver Nussin by my teacher. And my teacher called him up and said, you have to take this composer. And he's like, well, how old is she? He's like, 19. He goes, well, usually most of the fellows are much older. So that was me at Tanglewood. And every year at Tanglewood, we got to show one piece to Leonard Bernstein.
Oh, I see.
And so he's, this is Oliver Nussin, who brought me to Tanglewood. This is many years later. And a wonderful, terrific, outstanding composer.
Yes, I loved working with Ollie. My time during Tanglewood, it's such a wonderful human being. He's like a musician's musician. Music just pours out of him, and
Totally.
yeah.
Great conductor, great composer, which is rare.
Yes.
And he's, Ollie was there that night. He was seated like somewhere right next to all of us there.
I see.
But Oliver's amazing artist, and unfortunately he passed recently. But, great person.
Yeah, in Japan, he's well loved because he used to conduct the NHK Symphony Orchestra with composition, and he shared me wonderful stories about his time in Japan too. So
Yes.
Miss Ollie, he's such a wonderful human being.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so was your first time sharing your composition to Bernstein like exciting, nerve-wracking? What was? Do you remember what piece it was?
So this was a tradition at Tanglewood. Every summer, the 6 composing fellows got, there was like an evening with Leonard Bernstein.
Okay.
And it was supposed to start at maybe 6 o'clock. It never started till about 10. And usually it would go on till 2:30 or 3 in the morning. And so it was like a whole event. And I was very humbled to be able to, to show him anything, and probably completely terrified. But he was just very... he was very generous. He was very, very generous. And I felt fortunate for the words that he said to me on those occasions.
Wonderful. I have a question from one of our viewers, Dave, who hosts a radio show in Savannah, but he says doing contemporary classic show called For the Birds, and we'll be playing Avian Capriccio as part of that. Could you say a few words about this work?
Oh, that is so nice of you, Dave. Thank you. Really, really appreciate it. Yes, it's a quintet. It's in 3 movements. They're each short, 4 minutes each or so, and they're kind of character pieces in that they each have a different inner life to them, and they're based on different birds. So the first one is the Hummingbirds. So it's really, really like fast. Yeah. Oh, you've already got it there. Wow, you are quick. So the Hummingbirds, and then the Swans and the Canaries. So the Hummingbirds are like moving around really fast, like this kind of thing. And the Swans are much more like oh, wow, that's what I was just trying to sing.
But you did.
Yeah. Anyway, it just keeps going, and it's very difficult. I'm very impressed, Dave, that you were playing it. And I thought that the Axiom Brass, I thought that the recording that we're listening to was excellent.
I love the sketch. This is awesome.
It's just the first movement.
This is so cool. I love that you just... It makes it so easy to understand.
Well, this is, you have the scatter shot that we're listening to.
Okay.
Well, I don't know which part of the piece you're in. And then you have these chords, which we're at now. It becomes... So those, when all the lines are together, it's like chordal.
I see. Oh, I see. So this part, probably.
Yeah, and then we go back to scatter shot.
I think we're here.
Yeah, I'm not sure where we are, but basically this movement goes between these 2 syntaxes. But never the same way twice, ever. It just keeps developing. So it's basically giving you a sense of the piece, I think.
Yeah, no, this is wonderful. Thanks, Dave, for bringing it up, and I'm glad that you're...
That's so nice of you.
Thanks, Dave. He's always a wonderful supporter of my show and of all the arts at Savannah. So it's wonderful to have that.
Wow.
Cool. So of all the amazing performances that you've had and premieres, and can you share with us some of your treasured performances?
Oh boy. I mean, I feel so fortunate for everyone that I've had the chance to work with. It's hard to know, but uh, I'm trying to think. Uh, of course, working with Nassim was like super important, but there was a performance I did with a very fabulous
Mm-hmm.
Japanese conductor, Seiji
Mm-hmm.
Ozawa.
Oh, fantastic.
And Mr. Ozawa commissioned me to write a cello concerto for
Okay.
Mislav Rostropovich,
Mm.
worldwide
Yeah.
superstar cellist. And that he did that at the Boston Symphony Orchestra.
Mm-hmm.
And I think at the time I was probably 26 years old, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was Seiji and Rostropovich. And then another one was when I did a piece for the New York Philharmonic for
Mm-hmm.
Lauren Mazel.
I see.
And then I remember doing a piece for, there's Lauren Mazel and Lang Lang.
Mm-hmm.
I remember doing many pieces, but one of the pieces I did for Mr. Boulez is called Orbital Beacons.
Mm-hmm.
And he did one piece, and then he commissioned another, and then he commissioned another, and then he toured them, and so forth. So I had kind of a very long relationship with Mr. Boulez, and this was right after the performance of, which piece? Orbital Beacons.
Mm-hmm.
And then I, of course, worked a lot with Barenboim at the Chicago Symphony as well.
Mm-hmm.
And the one performance I remember very much is the world premiere with the Berlin Philharmonic.
Mm-hmm.
Daniel and the Berlin Philharmonic commissioned me to write a piano concerto, and this was the rehearsal just before the show at the Berlin Philharmonic. And he's beautiful, beautiful pianist. And then more recently, I did a cello concerto for Lynne Harrell, very famous cellist and wonderful artist who recently died, unfortunately.
Yes.
And it was conducted by Christian R. Ming, who did a wonderful job. This is at the Aspen Music Festival, maybe, I don't know, 7 years ago, something like that.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. I just the what I always find about your composition is that it really speaks, like, as a listener. If I were to take myself away from myself as a musician, but just to be as a listener who doesn't know much about music, there's always something that the listener can grasp and remember. There's always a beautiful melody. There's always something that people can hum to, and also that there's something that you really can feel the energy and the muse of the composer, and it puts people at a really wonderful, warm feeling. And I think it's one of the things that attracts people to your composition, and then composers and conductors especially, to conduct many of your works. So I just love your pieces. So
thank you. I mean, I love writing music, and I really just write music to express gratitude. Lucky to be alive. I'm lucky to have all these wonderful friends like you and all these terrific musicians. And so I just want to express gratitude, and I want to write pieces that are positive and optimistic and full of life and rhythm and caprice and playfulness. I don't write dark music or I don't know, like ugly music. And I use those in inverted quotes because that can be very beautiful too. Like,
right.
There's any kind of music. I love all kinds of music, but for myself, I want to reach across to my listener and shake hands. I definitely I want to communicate.
Most definitely. Dave is asking if the piece for Lynne Harrell was Ritual Incantations.
Oh, thanks, Dave. The piece for Lynne Harrell was commissioned by the Boston Symphony, and it is called Legend of the Phoenix. It's the third cello concerto. And the second cello concerto, to make this all very confusing, was premiered in Aspen, which was with David Finkel. There's a beautiful recording of that called Ritual Incantations. And then the first cello concerto is the one I did with Seiji Ozawa and Mislav Rostropovich. So I have 3 cello concertos and 3 violin concertos. It's a genre I love, but I love the cello. I love violin. So what a pleasure.
Yeah, most definitely. So from, in your journey of your life as a composer, you started off as a student of composition, and now you're teaching composition. Can you tell us a little bit about the Chicago Center for Contemporary Composition?
Sure. Yeah. So I've been teaching for, I guess this is maybe my 30th year, because I started at the Eastman School of Music, and then I went to Northwestern, and I teach at Tanglewood in the summers, or I used to teach at Tanglewood in the summers and at Aspen and so forth. So when I got to the University of Chicago, I founded a Center for Contemporary Composition. And this is made up of 10 parts. So we have an annual concert series, and I founded an ensemble called the Grossman Ensemble, who are absolutely fabulous, something akin to the London Sinfonietta or the Ensemble Moderne, that kind of ensemble. And then we also have an electronic music studio. We have visiting ensembles. We have distinguished guest composers. This past year, we've had Tanya Leone as our distinguished guest composer. We do performances, recordings. We also have a graduate student postdoctoral fellowship, where one graduate student comes and spends the year with us, teaches one class, but has the whole year to write music. So we get applications for the postdoctoral fellowship from all around the world. It's just like an incredible year. That's the Grossman Ensemble there. So it keeps me busy, I can tell you, running this. That's the electronic studio, which is run by my colleague, Sam Pluta. And that's
How many years have you been at University of Chicago now?
I'm rising into my 10th year. I just finished my 9th.
Oh, congratulations. How this is a rough time for the students, but maybe it's actually a good time in the sense of staying home, and they get to just focus on writing, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I mean, it's an emotional time in America and in the world. And, I think for some artists, they're just pouring it right into their work, and other people are, distracted and not able to work, and other people are, everybody's a little different. But I mean, hopefully everybody and the whole planet is doing everything that we all can to support people of color, Black people, brown people, indigenous people. And, the senseless murder of George Floyd and the killings of so many other Black people that came before him, and the long history of racism and discrimination are totally unacceptable. Absolutely, utterly unacceptable. Of course, I see now you put up a banner, Black Lives Matter. That's so cool of you. Yes, Black Lives Matter. And I think it's important for all of us, no matter what we're doing, to just make that a top priority. And then, in addition, we're all dealing with COVID. And and then in America, if I might say so, I wouldn't, let me say, we don't have the best leadership. I'll put it that way. So we got a lot of things going on here. An election coming up in November. So it's a complicated time for everybody on the planet.
Yeah. Well, in regards to current affairs, how has because performing music has become such a routine activity for us performers, we never really thought about audiences not being there. And then all of a sudden, because of this world crisis, which is the COVID-19, performing in public has become extremely difficult. Has your attitude towards music and has your attitude towards performing for an audience changed in this course of the few months?
I have to say, I don't know.
Okay.
I just don't know, because basically the way I do my life is that I get up at 4 in the morning and I work till 11 and I work all day long. And so I'm just very much doing, like, get this done, do that, do this, try to support that, help this, work on the center, work on recordings, try to compose, teaching. Typically I'm traveling a lot, engraving, or my friend Lynne is engraving. I'm proofreading. So it's so busy every day. Like literally every hour of my day is completely planned, day after day after day. So I don't really think I can analyze like what's changed or how have I changed. Maybe I can do that in 6 months or in a year.
Sure.
Right now, I'm very much in just doing. Just acting.
If
And
anything, your travel schedule has sort of stopped so that you don't have to travel as much as you used to, or you can't really travel right now. So
yeah, when the lockdown came in, I got online and I canceled 14 trips. Like
Okay.
this one and that one and the hotel, this one and all the details of that one
Yeah.
and everything. And I was so exhausted canceling them. Then I started to think, how would I have done them? It's like, it was a lot. My schedule was crazy.
Yeah.
So now I do have more time, but it's filled up instantly. Like I don't notice it.
Gotcha.
Including writing pieces overnight in 2 weeks. That'll fill it up.
How do you go about with your students at the University of Chicago? Do you teach them via Zoom, or do they send you the materials and then you comment? How does that process of like the non one-on-one in person?
Yeah, so I have private students, and we meet by Zoom every week.
Okay.
And before the lesson, maybe an hour or half an hour, or even 5 minutes before, they send me what they've written. And then I have an iPad and I have their music up. So while we're talking, I'm looking at the music, and then I write on their music and can email it back to them annotated.
I see.
So it's almost as if we're together. And then I also have all kinds of things here where I can draw pictures and things to make explanations. I have a piano right here that I can play during lessons and just like turn the computer like that and sort of do a lesson from over there a little bit. So I've basically been sitting in this chair a lot.
I think we've gotten used to just sitting a lot during this stay home. Yeah, for sure. Well, that's wonderful that your students, the momentum of their composition process hasn't stopped because you're there for them. So that's so
they're
wonderful.
I love my students, every one of them. I love them.
Tell us a little bit about Ear Taxi Festival. We had a wonderful success a few years ago, and just what that festival was about in Chicago.
Yeah, so in 2013, I had this idea to put together a festival that would celebrate like all of the musicians and composers in Chicago. And I probably should have shot myself in the head and stopped right there. But I spent, it was 2013, 14, mostly 14, 15, and 16. And the festival happened in October of 2016, and it involved something like 88 world premieres. So I honestly can't remember, like 120 other pieces, and I can't remember, 500 musicians. It involved all the universities, all the radio stations, the running marathon, the big theaters in town, the Chicago Symphony, everyone was involved. So it was a massive, massive, massive project. And so every year somebody said, well, I'll do the next one. I can't do another one because it almost killed me. Literally, it almost killed me. But so there was supposed to be one in 17, and then there was going to be one in 18, and there's going to be one in 19. It's never happened again yet. But I do believe that the team that's working on it now will do it in 2021. And there were people, of course, it was a team for the 2016 one, including Stephen Burns and Reba Caffarelli and many others, John Bierbussy. These things take a lot of people to put together. And it was fun, but it was also really, really I was so exhausted from it. And I'm really looking forward to just attending it.
Well, but if it wasn't for you to start it, this would not exist. So it's amazing that you created something that really brings the city together.
It was quite an event, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were like banners on the street posts and things like
Mm-hmm.
this, and full page reviews in the Chicago Tribune
Mm-hmm.
of
Wonderful.
many of the concerts. I mean, it was really something.
I want to share our audience definitely is the Sweet Potato Kicks the Sun, and the video that I want to share is this.
And this your girl Nicole Paris. What's Rudy? I'm not alone. I'm with my girl, Augusta Reed, Atomic.
Thomas, I love it.
We met 400 millenniums ago. I met O.
I was so happy when Nicole agreed to meet, so hopped on an airplane, went down there. All of a sudden, we were in the lobby beatboxing together.
She was scatting. You guys, I have never scat in my entire life. I didn't even know how to spell scat. I was like, well, I'm not gonna do scat. I'm gonna do scat and beatbox, you know. So I did scat, 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 and like I didn't do all that. I just came up with it. So that's her rendition on beatboxing. Hey, it's your girl. Leslie. Down. Yap, down. Down.
I first met you on YouTube. I got this phone call from Augusta, and she said, you know, we're going to make this piece with this incredible woman.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're making a piece together. It's
Yes.
so exciting to go from something that's just like an idea in someone's head and make it a reality.
Nicole Paris is incredible, first of all. She's beyond just any beatboxer. So I would just say Nicole Paris, her voice, what she can do with her body to make sound is just fascinating. How do you make a role for someone like that?
When I work with classical musicians, you know, all of these opera singers, you know, it's fun. It brings out challenges that I've never been challenged with. It's new to me, fresh. It's like the trio. Wait, trio.
Tell us about this project.
Oh, it's so nice of you, Kay, to bring it up. So Nicole is one of my best friends. I adore her and love her and treasure her. And I was fortunate to have a commission from the Santa Fe Opera and the San Francisco Opera and a collection of other opera companies to make a new piece. I spent about 3 years on this piece.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a 1,000-page score, I think. And I really thought it would be interesting to introduce new and different kinds of voices into the opera house so that we weren't just working with operatic singers, but to bring in a beatboxer. And of course, not everybody sort of immediately agreed, but I just think it's just so wonderful, you know, and I write all this percussion music and I've been scatting my whole life. Louis Armstrong was my idol as a child. I used to play trumpet along, and Ella Fitzgerald was my next idol. So these are the two lead characters, Amy Owens and Dominic Bellevue, amazing artists. And Nicole, of course, is the special featured artist. Anyway, so the piece has Nicole and an actor who don't read any music, and then 3 singers that do read music, and a chorus. And anyway, it's a project, it's a comedy. And it's something I've spent an enormous part of my life on. And I'm very, very proud of the piece. I hope it will get more performances. It needs people who understand the kind of walls I'm breaking down. This is not a, quote, park and bark opera. You stand there and sing, then you walk over here and you sing, and this. No, it's all about kind of like a jazz troupe. An improvised jazz troupe, although it's fully notated. It's sort of hard to describe. But I would love to share it with people, so I hope before I die, it will be played again. The show was beautiful, as you can see from the photos, and everyone did a great job. And it was so much work. and there was one show.
Ay.
Just one.
So it just needs to be performed more.
It was just one. Like years and years of work and months of work and for everybody. Myself included, and Leslie, the librettist who you saw, is a genius. I mean, utter genius. I love her libretto. Love it. In fact, I think there might be a link to the libretto on my website if anyone wants to read it, because it's just hilariously funny. So, you know, it's near and dear to my heart, and I hope that I can find that maybe a university opera department or a regional opera company, or I just don't know who would help me to get it a second performance. And of course, Nicole is dying to do it again, as are the other singers.
I love, once again, your wonderful sketches.
If you just go down to that one, it's very hard to see, but other people can visit my website. It's basically a kaleidoscope of vocal techniques. So we have storytellings, emotions, and actions, but we also have, you know, beatboxing and crying and exhaling, and I can't see it. Let's see, you know, laughter and
whispering,
beads, stuttering, and bee sounds and bird sounds. And so if one understands the sonic kaleidoscope I'm building, it's a very, very interesting sonic world. It would make an excellent radio show, you know, if it was performed, or it would make an excellent recording, I should say.
Yeah.
Because of, whoops, I think I lost you, because of the, just the sonic envelopes that it investigates, which for those that are new music specialists, you know, this would be coming out of the work of Berio a little bit and Ligeti a little bit, but also out of the tradition of Gregorian chant and beatboxing and jazz and Ella Fitzgerald. And yet it's all my own. I mean, it's definitely me. So anyway, thank you. I didn't know you were going to pull that up right then, but I'm really glad you did. Just seeing Nicole makes me so happy. I was just talking to her 2 days ago. She's great.
No, it's such a unique opera that I want to make sure that people are aware of it. And then while I'm at it, I want to make sure that people know how to reach you and where to see your materials and compositions and all kinds of wonderful sketches. So augustareedthomas.com, and you could go to the works at the very top of the page. And let's just take one, for example, like orchestra. And one of the pieces that I love is the Helios. So Helios. Then you can listen to the recordings, and then there's always, you know, there's reviews and sketches, the mapping, which is always fun to see. So please check out Augusta's site. It's always fun. It's so colorful. Your website is so colorful. I love it.
Thank you for visiting it.
Yes. Well, Augusta, thank you so much for, you know, sharing your music, your journey of becoming a composer and what you're doing now, training the up and coming composers. But it's just so wonderful that with your music, there's so much joy. And then that's something I always cherish about, you know, doing your pieces and learning and listening to your music. So thank you.
Well, with your music making, there's always such joy. And I don't speak Japanese, but I would like to say, I've got it right.
Yeah.
Arigato. Arigato.
Arigato gozaimasu.
Arigato.
Yes.
I can
there we go.
Arigato.
Arigato. Excellent. Well, to our viewers, thank you so much for joining us on Music Today, and come back again sometime soon, and have a wonderful evening. And Augusta, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Arigato.
Thank you for watching. Please remember to subscribe, like, and share this video. ありがとうございました。チャンネル登録、いいね、そしてこのビデオをぜひシェアしてください。